Hi, my name is Winnie. Welcome to my life's journey. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing and for viewing my videos. I'm so grateful. And today I want to talk about something very interesting. I want to talk about how my childhood, by sharing my story, how it had affected, the way I viewed relationships. And today I want to talk about specifically romantic relationships. And of course, this will make people understand. My whole point is to raise awareness for people to understand what we go through in our childhood, and especially the early childhood experiences that we have, how they affect us. I know I've met many people who, when you start talking about trauma, they're like, I've learned to live with it. I don't really need to heal. What is there to heal about? And I just want to say that trauma is not something we can ignore. Trauma are things, childhood trauma, these are experiences that we've had that were negative, that affected us, and that if we don't deal with them, if we don't look back and forgive people who wronged us, if we don't look back and deal with all the things that happened to us, then it may be hard for us to have some experiences where we are as adults. It may be hard for us to experience even love. So and today, that is what I want to talk about. I know we love love. I love love. So, and I just want to say that I try to make some notes. So having experienced negative experiences of my early caregivers, that is my mother, my grandmother, my aunties, because my grandmother used to live with some of my aunties there, and that is where I was raised. So having experienced some of my negative experiences from people who loved me, people who were supposed to be there for me, it made me realize that I had developed some things, in my life that I didn't even know. So, and allow me to just go, into the experiences that I had. So, looking at my primary caregiver, who was my mom. My mom gave birth to me, and she gave me away at about 2 to 3 months to my grandmother. And that time she was going to school. So when she was in school and I had to live with my grandmother at 3 months, I couldn't, obviously feed. I had to start eating at a young age, taking porridge, taking Cerelac. I don't know if you guys remember Cerelac, or if it's still there, I really don't know. But I had to start eating food because I couldn't. My mom went far away to school. She couldn't continue breastfeeding me. So I had to start eating food at a very young age. And that means that at only when I was months. And that means that my first experience with my mom was abandonment. I felt like she neglected me, she abandoned me. Because yes, she had a reason, the reason why she had to leave, she had to go to school. However, it doesn't, just because she had a good reason and she left me, doesn't mean that I will not suffer the neglect and the abandonment that comes with that. So there are decisions that we make in goodwill because we want to change our life. To be honest, if I was my mother, I would still make the same decision. However, I'm just saying that it affected me. It left a gap in my life, of being abandoned, neglected, and by the time I came to live with my mom, we were not connecting. So that meant that our relationship suffered, because at that time I remember, and I'll give you specifics, I remember at some point writing a list when I was going to high school, and I wrote some things that I needed, and my mom was for the opinion that you were not living in Nairobi, and these are things you are not used to. How come you're writing on a list for me to get you? And that hurt me, because I felt, how come my mother, who's supposed to, you see, I stayed at home because you were the one who made the decision. I didn't have anything to do with the decision. So at this point, she's telling me that I want too much because I came to Nairobi and I met my siblings and I saw the things they had and I wanted the things they had, just as a normal child. And at this time, my mom is telling me, you shouldn't be writing this and that because you were not used to it. How about you just live the way you used to live? For me, I thought coming to Nairobi to my mother was a privilege. So I'm like, I want to have what everyone else is having. And that hurt me. So my primary caregiver, who was my mother, abandoned me and neglected me. And there was also emotional abuse, where there were things we were not really, getting along on. And there was that drift. There was no relationship between me and my mom. Yes, in as much as my friends were not even aware of this story, because I never really used to talk about it. And number two, the other primary caregiver I had was my grandmother, who was married at the age of 15, I think. And of course, having gone through her own issues, taking care of her own siblings, she became dysfunctional in the process. When you take more than you can handle, it's very easy for you to become dysfunctional. And when we were brought now to live with my grandmother, I remember she used to be really verbally abusive, even physically abusive. We talk about it with my cousins and we laugh, but it is true. And even emotionally abusive. She would, call us name, verbally abuse us. She would say things that no child should ever have to go through or even to hear, And she would beat you up, the way you just make a little mistake and the way you're beaten doesn't go with the beating. Yeah, that is how it was. That is how it was at my grandmother's. And the other primary caregiver I had was my grandfather, because my grandmother was very harsh, was very abusive. My grandfather was always out of the home front. So that also meant that we were left with the abuser, who would now, just continue the cycle because he couldn't protect us. So that for me made me suffer an abandonment of some sort. I felt like my grandfather could not protect us, and that was like the father figure I had. Okay. And the other primary caregiver I had was my aunties and uncles, who were consistently in and out of relationships, going through different issues and exposing us to things that we should not have been exposed to. And they were also verbally abusive. The way they would handle themselves, each other, we just learned the weird stuff from them. So the negative experiences I had were poverty. There was also poverty, we didn't have much at my grandmother's. So there was also lack. There was just lack. And then there was also, that form, because now the people were in and out of relationships, there was the issue of step siblings. So and it was the easiest for us to even not get along. Yeah. So most of us don't share fathers and mothers. So that is how it is. That is the dynamic of my family. And then we also started losing people. I lost some of my aunties, my own mother, different people, and that also affected us, because when you experience loss, I remember I experienced loss at a very young age. I can't remember the age I was, but I was very young. And loss affects you, especially if it's someone who you're connected to and then they die at a young age. It's really hard. So having gone through all these things with my primary caregivers, and now coming into relationships, of course I had some positive experiences, but to be honest, there were fewer than the negative ones. So one of the positive experiences I had was Christmas. When people would travel from Nairobi, from Mombasa, coming all the way home, and then would just have a good time. No one would beat anyone. At this point, everyone is on their best behavior. So I remember just looking forward to every Christmas, because we would wear new clothes, we would sing along, just sit together, we'll eat bread, we'll eat chapatis. That is the time where we would eat things we don't eat, during the holiday. So what happens is, the other positive experience I also had was my grandfather's love. My grandfather loved me and I loved him. So my brain couldn't understand why he had to go away all the time, because he would avoid staying at home because of my grandmother. But now he would go away and just leave me alone, and I was like, where's my grandfather? And now sometimes my cousins would beat me and then say, your grandfather is not here to look out for you. And it was really painful. I wish he would stay longer, with me, because I needed him, And then the other positive memory I have is just playing. I used to love playing. On my report cards when I was in primary school, when I was in nursery, they used to say I was very cheeky and very playful, and I loved it. And I feel that even right now, as I continue healing, I feel there are little parts of that are coming back to me, and I feel alive more than I ever felt alive. So basically, because of the trauma I went through, which was the verbal abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and all that, and what I went through is I felt that if my primary caregivers cannot love me, how can a person just come and tell me they love me in a relationship, and then they want to be in a relationship with me? So trust issues, insecurity, codependency, where I expected that those people, when I love a person, I'd expect them to make me feel good, make me feel alive, but we know that is not possible. So it's like I was, using them to feel better about myself, about my trauma, about my situation. And people pleasing. I just used to do extra to earn people's love, whether it was friendships, and right now I'm actually learning to drop all that, trust me, I'm in a journey where I'm coming back to myself, and I am so alive more than I've ever been. And the other thing also is the guilt and shame that comes, because I came to Nairobi and I went to a school where 90% of the students were coming from Nairobi, so I had to fit in. Because I don't want to say that I was I don't want to say that I was raised in my rural areas. So I had to fit in. It was all these things that I dealt with. Anger, oh my goodness. Before 2016, 2017, I just remember anger as the primary emotion I had throughout. Because I felt that I had wasted my childhood. I felt like I went through a lot, and there was no one there for me. There was no one even to talk to me or even advise you or even make you feel good about the things that you've gone through. There was really no one to count on. And the other thing I dealt with also was I was too attached to things. So that by the time, sometimes I'm in a relationship, it's not working out, but I just get attached to it. I just hold on to it. I just don't I cannot afford to release it, because I was abandoned. So I was afraid of being abandoned, again, feeling that feeling again. So it was really hard. And again, just settling for less. I just know this is not working out. However, releasing it and letting it go was a problem. I struggled with it. Okay, then there was also the inability to say no. Every person, do you have some money? Yes. Do you have yes. Do you have this? Yes. And I remember even when I was working, I actually went into debt because of giving. And for some weird reason, I used to meet people who did not have. So it was like there was this unseen connection with me to people who just lacked, you know. And for a very long time, I couldn't say no. I felt like if I said no, who will help them? I have to help them, you know. Oh my goodness. There are things that really affected my relationships. And looking back, I wish I had the information I have right now, because it would have given me a better outlook to deal with the things that I had to deal with then. However, I feel that it was also necessary, because this is the reason I'm here sharing my story with all of you here. Anyway, so there was also the inability to be honest about how I felt. I remember at one point being in a relationship with this person asking me if something bothered me, and that thing had bothered me for a while, but I outrightly said no, it doesn't bother me. And then later I was asking myself, why did I say no? So that is when my journey began, to asking myself, why did I say this when this is how I feel? And I remember I've attended a trauma competent training of late, and one of the things they said is when you say, I can't remember what they called it, but they said there's that state which you get in when you're torn between saying yes to them and saying no, because you want to say no, but they want you to say yes. So you're torn, and you're torn that if you say no, they're going to be angry at you, but you're also torn because if you say yes, then you will be angry at you. And I think that was a game changer for me. So these are the issues I dealt with in my previous relationships, and they affected me. You know, just that sitting in a dysfunctional relationship because somehow you're afraid of getting out, somehow there's people pleasing. When this person treats you badly, all you want to do is just to keep on doing better because you want them to approve of you. Oh my goodness. But I thank God because I was able to work through that. And in my next video, I'm going to share how I dealt with that. So stay tuned with me, and I'm going to share all this in my next video. We're going to have a series of like I don't know how many videos we're going to do, but just stay with me so that I'll tell you more juicy stories about this. Okay, so thank you and God bless you. I hope you've learned something. Thank you and God bless you. Bye.